Welcome to the Big Kickoff Football Show with myself, Roy Shanahan, David Bugle, and Neil Dobbs. What match are you at there, Neil?
Yeah, Brighton versus Wednesday.
Sent off, Jeff. Really? Big week of football this week. Champions League. We'll go straight to the Champions League last night, Dave.
Yeah.
A result that I suppose, if anyone was putting a bet on the game, most people, probably the majority, I'm not saying the big majority, but majority of people would have put City down as favourites to win. The game probably went the way we thought it was going to go, but just without any chances for Manchester City.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it in that sense. Chelsea had a game plan that was working, and it was obvious it was working, and it was causing City problems. So you're waiting for the City computer to kick in and figure out how they were going to do it, and it never happened. And then obviously Bruyne and a few other things happened as the game went on, but it was just interesting to see City being made look ordinary and frustrated and not being City-like, which was great in that sense. And it was a great game of chess. And Tuchel seems to be the guy who has marked his card a little bit. Well, I remember when Klopp first came in and they had a good run for a season or two against City and it really pissed them off. I'd say it's something similar now with Tuchel and Chelsea. I think it's 3 out of 3 in his tenure. So obviously it's working, and they did a fantastic job on it last night. But what was it? 60 games this season with Man City, and 59 out of 60, at least Rodri or Fernandinho played, and only one game they didn't, and that was last night. So people are feasting on that now over the last 24 hours. But to see City struggle to come up with an answer was fascinating.
Yeah, it was interesting, Neil, with the team that he selected. Everyone's going on about Fernandinho and Rodri not playing, but did that make much of a difference in the overall standings? Their biggest failure was they couldn't create chances.
Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, the way City set out this year, obviously they started Sterling as well, which I don't think everybody thought he would do. So there was a couple of little tweaks. Look, at the end of the day, Pep was trying to send out, as he said, he wanted to send out an attacking team. He wanted to press the back five of Chelsea. He wanted to do, he wanted to be adventurous. And I think he did that in the first few minutes. City really pressed him high up the field and they showed their intent. Whether or not a Fernandinho or a Rodri would have made that difference, obviously we'll never know. But if you looked at Chelsea's tactics, it was very, very apparent after maybe 5 or 6 minutes that they were just going to sit in. But man, did they break with speed. And of course, that was where the chances came from. Even before the goal, they got in. I know Werner did a Werner special, but they kind of got in a couple of times using the same tactics. So, yeah, I mean, obviously in hindsight, it's very easy to say they needed a Fernandinho there to hold the anchor, to anchor the midfield. But, they were caught out so badly, and it's very rare to see a Pep team caught out like that, out-thought.
Yeah, Dave, the goal, when you see the goal, there's a lot to look at there. Of course, the first thing they look at is if a Fernandinho is there or Rodri, he'd block that gap. That's not guaranteed, obviously. You don't know where he's going to be. You would think and would hope that he would be there, but that's not guaranteed. So when you look at the rest of the defence, 2 centre-backs are pulled out wide onto the wing, and that's a disaster in defensive terms. It should not be happening, end of story. And Zinchenko, well...
He was asleep at the wheel.
Well, he's just asleep. You can't even say he's tired. This is in the first half, He didn't even burst his balls to try and get back. It was just poor defending all round, and I just don't think you can blame it on one decision, not playing certain players.
100%. I don't know exactly when, about 10 or 15 minutes before that, Zinchenko slips into kind of the middle of midfield job, and he got the ball, and for some reason, the passage played for him, Diaz went beyond him, as if he was like the interim left back. So there was a wide open channel, and Werner was wide open, all on his own. Now, probably maybe that's why they left him there, because God love him. But anyway, Zinchenko hit a misplaced pass, and Mount intercepted it. He did nothing afterwards. A defender immediately would go, shit, danger, I better do it. He did nothing. And Ruben Diaz obviously started hauling ass. Now, somebody else was able to come in and stop it from getting towards Werner, who was free. But Zinchenko did 0. He was kind of still facing forwards if they will get it back, and they got very lucky. And then, of course, there's no surprise what happens for the goal, because once I seen that, I went, well, sure, he did it 10 minutes ago. Why is he not going to do anything different? He's a typical, not by jumping on the gun, but he seems to be a typical fullback nowadays. Absolutely brilliant on the ball, great at doing whatever going forward, but just does not smell danger. And that was 2 instances in 10 or 15 minutes. And obviously the two lads are playing this. Well, obviously Walker's bombing forward, so the two guys are kind of, one of them's going to be the right back and then one of them's the centre. It's a high risk game. That looks great for 59 games out of 60 this year, but as I said, Chelsea marked their card yesterday, and the wide open space then for Havertz was just
unbelievable because your centre backs, two of them are dragged out.
Yeah.
You know, I played centre back. You would never ever go and abandon the middle of the pitch. You would let that player drift out there, and then if you see that the ball was going out there, you get out as quick as you possibly could. You would never leave that gap. No. And so this is from a player of the year, the player of the year, the football writers player of the year. That's a basic mistake, and no one seems to be picking up on it.
No, and Kante won a header on him as well. Remember the cross where he big? So everyone's jumping on that today. Well, a lot of scouts as well. You know, the Scouts Mafia, they jumped on it today. How dare they say he's as good as Van Dijk? I was like, Christ, lads, he's give it a rest. But considering the plaudits that he's got this year, it was distinctly amateurish last night.
Yeah. Neil, Kante, for me, has always been one of the world's best midfielders. Everyone was talking about Thiago when he came in, De Bruyne when he came in. Kante's been the best midfielder in the world since Leicester. Yeah. What do you reckon?
He's an unbelievable find, an absolute unbelievable find. Probably the best piece of business that Chelsea have done in 10 years in the transfer market was bringing in Kante. They obviously stole him away from Leicester's title winning side. They identified immediately that he was their guy. It's not like he cost them crazy money, 100 million. But he is a fantastic player. They always kind of joke saying the Makelele role, and they're saying it should be now renamed the Kante role, and they're dead right. He's a phenomenal player, and he's a player that would walk into absolutely any team in the Premier League. It was probably a little bit interesting the early part of the season, and even when Conte was managing Chelsea, they weren't quite sure what they were doing with Kante. They were playing what's his name, Jorginho. They're playing him in the kind of 6, and that meant Kante kind of had to roam more forward and do a different role. But the way Tuchel has him playing at the minute, they have a good relationship with him and Jorginho, and then they switch Kovacic in and out as well. Fantastic midfield 2 or 3, depending on what way he wants to do it. He gives the likes of Mason Mount this kind of free role to drift between the lines. But his work ethic and the way he goes about himself on the pitch is absolutely top class. And he seems, Jays, you wouldn't know for Chelsea player, but he seems like a genuinely nice guy in interviews as well. So, fair play to him. He's kind of like your destroyer on the pitch and then real humble off the pitch, which you kind of admire that about him. But fantastic player, absolutely fantastic.
Dave, De Bruyne went off injured. It was a right clatter altogether that he got, and it was on purpose. Obviously, he stopped them to block him off. In hindsight, when you look at a referee, should a referee be sending the player off for an injury like that? Because first of all, he's given him a yellow card, so he acknowledges that he's after fouling him on purpose. But the extent of his injury to have a player go off, and it looks like concussion at the time. Now it turns out it was a broken nose and a broken eye socket. Should he be getting sent off for that? Because they're losing one of their best players.
Kind of have memories of 2 years ago about this. I think Rudiger knew what he was doing, but then struck gold by putting him out of the game. A bit similar to a Spanish defender on Mo Salah 2 years ago. I think he knew what he was doing, but obviously the intention wasn't to do that damage. So if they found out that that's what it is and then send them off, I don't think they physically can in the rule book. I think it was one of them professional fouls that actually turned out to be worse than what I was, purely because of the injury, but I don't think that was the intention. It was good old-fashioned body check that obviously left a bit more on it. To be honest, I was more concentrating on Rudiger because he dropped down so fast with his head, and I could see that there was no contact in his head, so I was just annoyed that he was trying to play act. But then I think with the face man, I was like, oh, well, maybe he did something as well, but he just played it very well in that sense, do you know what I mean? But to be honest, like this is where probably Pep, the one thing I would say he kind of failed. Like, he's your playmaker, and City were being stifled, and he should have been more on the ball. He was too far forward, and they were playing 5 at the back. He should have been dropping them maybe a little bit deeper and getting on the ball a bit more to try and make things happen, because he's the difference maker. And that's where they were very void of any chances, because he was in all these pockets that were just too tight, and he could do nothing to really showcase what he does and bring everyone else into the game. But yeah, going back to what you said, Yeah, I think it was just one of them bonus tackles that turned out better for Chelsea, but I don't think the intention was there to really do them in that sense.
Okay. Neil, the Europa League was on during the week. Manchester United, it wasn't too dissimilar to what the Champions League final was. One team set their stall, the other team tried to attack and were very, very poor at it. And Villarreal ran out winners, probably worthy winners in the end.
Yeah, it was an interesting game to watch. Obviously, I wasn't exactly cheering on United in the game, but the game started off kind of as I expected. I think Solskjaer tried maybe to go for the jugular earlier on, and by starting Cavani in particular, I think he signalled that, rather than bring him off the bench as an impact sub, I think he started more or less his best 11. Obviously, the decision with Pogba sitting a little deeper doesn't always entertain, but I'd expect Pogba in a big game like that to really step forward. So it was there for United to do, and I think in particular in the second half when they came out and they kind of they really got the bit between their teeth and they went at Villarreal, it was only going to be one winner. And I was sitting there going, they're going to win this 2 or 3-1 now. They're really pinning them back. They're playing very well. They're on the front foot. They're aggressive. Like Man United owned the ball for about 25 minutes in the second half up until they scored. And then something, I don't know whether it was fear, I don't know whether just something changed within the side that they took their foot off the pedal. They literally had their foot on the Villarreal neck and they let them off the hook big time. Then obviously Villarreal made a few subs. They freshened up their side. And United had nothing, absolutely nothing on the bench. And then in extra time, Villarreal looked like they had an extra gear. So it was some transformation. Just to see it, the game ebb and flow like that, where United were in such a dominant position and they really should have seen out the game in that period. And they really let that one away. Like it must be a sickener to let a game go in that fashion.
Well, they started off the game, Neil, non-existent in the first half. They had the ball, but they were passing it from one side of the pitch to the other. And as I said before, they're going from A to B to C to D to get across the pitch instead of switching the play at any quick pace. The likes of Bruno Fernandes, I suppose a bit like De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandes never got in the game because he wasn't allowed in because it was so compact in the middle. So then you have to get down the wings. You have to have your players. And the likes of Wan-Bissaka, Shaw, Greenwood at times did it. Rashford non-existent. There was nothing down the wing. So even 3 or 4, you need to have everyone on top of their game. They never attacked down the wings at all to get crosses in, get delivery in to Cavani. So it never happened. It was such a slow start. And my question's going to be, Neil, Manchester United have started slow in almost every game that they've played this year, and it still hasn't been addressed. Not once has it been addressed. It's still a problem at the end of the season. So is this something that's people are going to look at Solskjaer and go, well, has he got the knowledge to be able to change that? And has he got the knowledge now to be able to progress on and make sure that doesn't happen again the following year?
Yeah, the interesting thing, I guess, Roy, is that, it's all habits. You get into that, winning is a habit, losing is a habit. But there's something strange with Man United this year, like that, where they seem to give up a goal, but then they kick up almost 3 gears immediately. They wrestle the control of the game. And then I remember David had a stat there a couple of weeks ago where how many times Man United have come from behind in a game, and it was absolutely phenomenal. So on one hand, he is that side right. The reaction is good. Maybe the team spirit to be able to come from behind all the time is really, really positive. But there's something really, I don't want to say a lack of professionalism, but surely they don't go out at the start of the game when they're doing their warm-up and they're in the dressing room and say, right, lads, let's take it at a 10% tempo for 30 minutes and grow into the game. Why didn't they do what they did in the second half from the very, very start? And then they wouldn't have got themselves in a position where, they were almost desperate to try and get that lead like they were in the second half. So Solskjaer, at the end of the day, you're going to question him. You're going to question his management. You're going to question the message that he puts out there. But at the end of the day, it's down to the players on the pitch to grab the game by the scruff of the neck. I know Fernandes got a lot of kind of heat off this game. The fact that he didn't really make an appearance. Alec De Bruyne, he was anonymous in the game. I think he got frustrated. He was chasing the referee down. He was looking for free kicks. There's a clip there gone viral where he argued with the referee in the tunnel, saying that Villarreal took 3 minutes to take a free kick, and then like 5 minutes later on the field, he's diving. looking for frees. And I think he lost control, he lost his composure, and that spread, because even Cavani was running back 35, 40 yards to argue with the referee in the middle of a field over a handball. So something on the night just broke down for United on the day, that just wasn't right, and they needed the leaders to pick them up and to push them on. At the end of the day, McTominay was probably the best player, and he's a youngster. You need the pros, the old guys around, to bring that team, to bring it all together.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I thought Cavani was excellent. I thought he worked his arse off. He tried to get himself involved in the game. He chased back. I don't know how many times he was back in his own box making last-ditch challenges and what have you. So I thought he tried to put himself in the game. I think you're going to get teams like Villarreal. It's going to happen because it should happen. If that's the best way for you to win a game, close off the middle. Don't let the likes of Fernandes and Pogba and all the dangerous people get on the ball. Then it has to be up to the wild players to step up onto the plate. And, you're a Manchester United player or a Manchester City player. You've got to do something different and not hope for the same old people to do the same job and get you out of trouble.
100%. Like, Cavani and McTominay were the only two that really stuck out for me, who kind of went, right, F this, we need to try and do something, like whatever about game plan they had. They just looked to have that bit more of an impetus to try and put an impact on the game and do that one moment that might galvanise the rest of the side. And exactly what you said, like I drifted out of the game for a few minutes because it was just there was just nothing much happening. Like I just looked at it here. There was only 3 shots on target in the whole game, 1 for Villarreal, 2 for United. It's the lowest tally ever in a final. That says something. It was a lot of huff and puff. And I think with Villarreal, they were playing a bit cagier, probably a bit more of an aging side, a bit more of an experienced side, a bit more nous about them, and very much frustrated United. And it just got seriously kind of frustrating for them, and there was no response for anyone. And just the reason why I want to kind of come into this, because my mates who are on one of the WhatsApp groups, predominantly United, just went to town on Rashford, just like a lot of other people. And one of them even said, like, it didn't look like he even wanted to be there. Like, as I said, I drifted in and out of it for a little bit. But did you notice that, Roy, when you were watching it? Because I noticed there was one chance where I don't know whether he thought it was going or whether it was offside or not, but he just fluffed it wide, and I don't think it was offside in the end. Remember, there was a chance kind of going down this left-hand side of the goal. But anyway, what did you make of it? Because one or two of them seemed to think he just didn't seem to care, or just seemed to have that kind of, I don't know, he just seemed to be not, his body was there, but his head wasn't.
Yeah, well, I would have been looking at the whole team in all fairness. Yeah. And I just thought that, again, I was looking at the whole team as in, I couldn't pick out anyone for not trying. I could only pick out people for not getting themselves in the game. And I think the likes of, as I said, on the wide side, so 2 on the right, 2 on the left, never got themselves in. Now, I will go on to say that I thought the Pogba thing, where he put him back in beside McTominay, he must have thought, listen, these are going to sit back. We're going to have to, we might need someone to pick out a ball that might get over the top of them from distance and what have you. So I wasn't so disappointed in that situation either that Pogba played. I still don't think that's Pogba's best position, but I can understand why he did that. Yeah, no, I don't think anyone wasn't interested. I just think you have to give the plaudits to Villarreal. Yeah. They closed out the game really, really well. They frustrated United really, really well. The biggest thing for me was the free kick that they scored from. It was coming up close to the halfway line. They're, well, probably maybe halfway, a bit closer to halfway up the pitch. But their line was about 10 yards off the edge of the box. You would have thought it would have been on the edge of the box. The ball would have come in. They would have headed it clear. There wouldn't have been no problem. They gave loads of space in behind. So, yeah, it was. There was a few things that weren't right. And, again, do you change your best team just because it's a final? Pep now will think about that. Solskjaer will think about that. They've both been on the losing side, and the team that were getting them results, maybe they would have went on and done it for them. So, Neil, you want to talk about the goalkeepers?
Yeah, I find this a very a good topic, more so because I think everyone is expecting Henderson to kick on this year. He got his chance. Solskjaer made a brave call, and everyone was saying, look, give him to the end of the year, see how he progresses. There's going to be, highs and lows maybe involved. Any of the noise you hear from the kind of old English pro ex-goalkeepers are saying Henderson's the real deal. He's going to be a future England star, etc., etc. I was listening on the radio. They were talking about the Villarreal side that they actually played their backup goalie as well, and they were saying he's in for a big call if he plays him, and he turned out to be the hero. So obviously, you can get rewarded for these calls. But in the penalty scenario in particular, I don't know. First and foremost, I think Henderson obviously is paying from the Liverpool result, the one where he stayed in his line and he had a couple of dodgy moments. So Solskjaer flips again, puts De Gea in, and then it comes to penalties. Now, the penalties these days, they have a guy standing by with an iPad. They would know where every player hits it. They would have good data, like Sky. They would back it up, bottom left, top right, whatever it would be. It's almost in a science these days to make sure you're giving your keeper every single little advantage in the game. Now, as far as stats goes, David De Gea has saved 0 penalties out of like 24, 25, 0, and you've got Henderson, who has saved nearly half of the penalties that he's faced. It was like 17, 8 out of 17 or 7 out of 17 or something like that. So even that, remember Willie Caballero used to come off the bench.
He was Holland as well.
Tim Krul for Holland. It was almost like a masterstroke. You have this specialist penalty saver. It's a load of crap, but psychologically, it can be a masterstroke. So to have De Gea in there, I mean, we've all watched the penalties. I don't think he got really near, and he dived even before one of them was taken. He was in the corner by the time that your man even struck the goal. So I think that was a big call.
I don't know if you remember the World Cup in 1990, Peter Shilton, for any of the penalties against West Germany. Peter Shilton was way past his best at that stage, but I think Shilton's only hitting the ground now getting the one of the penalties. he was poor, and you kind of knew that he was never going to get to them. And when you looked at De Gea, there's them keepers, you just know, no, he hasn't got a breeze with penalties. He just doesn't know when to go, where to go.
Apparently he had a cheat sheet in his towel, and I think for most of them, the direction the penalty went is exactly where they went, and so did he. But he just didn't get on any of them.
He didn't. Now, in fairness,
most of the penalties, of all 22 penalties, most of them were fairly solid. I'd say 18 or 19 were really top penalties, including their keepers. It was an absolute bullet into the top corner. So, no, I do. I would agree with you though as well, Neil. I wouldn't have an issue with Henderson coming on. I don't think any of the fans would have either. So it's definitely something that needs to be brought up without doubt. But ironically, he had a cheat sheet, and they pretty much all went the direction they said. Wow. And he couldn't get.
I think the one that he didn't stick to, Dave, was the one that went down the centre. Yeah, and I think that's where they kind of brought that sheet in. The newspapers loved it when they found out about it.
There you go.
To tell you the truth, I'm looking at Henderson and I'm looking at De Gea, and if you look at Alisson, you look at Ederson, you look at Schmeichel, they all have a presence in the box. The ball comes in.
Yeah.
De Gea and Henderson are very flappy. That there's no real assurance for their defenders that they're going to come out claim that ball, and once the keeper claims it, and you get so much confidence when you have a keeper that comes out and claims a ball, calls it, and you know that he's going to claim a ball. You don't get that from De Gea. You've never got that from De Gea, and you don't get that from Henderson either. And I think that's one of the big things. I'm going to be honest here. I actually think Manchester United need to look for a new goalkeeper. So that's something that I'd be doing if I was them, because you need that presence. And to tell you the truth, I'd love to see Kasper Schmeichel at United. So we'll see anyhow if that ever happens. But they see them as the two of the best goalkeepers in the world. I'm not so sure.
There's rumours of Tom Heaton coming in, like as potentially a number 2 or number 3. But he'd be rubbing his hands going, I can take these two.
Yeah.
At the moment, if they don't get anything else. Yeah. But anyway.
100%. Yeah. Neil, there's talk of 150 million Manchester United budget. 3 in, 3 out, no more than that. What do you make of that? Who comes in, who comes out?
Well, now that we're after deciding they need a keeper, that's going to eat into a bit of a budget. Let's be honest.
We're deciding that, but I'm sure Solskjaer isn't.
Right. If you are going for a keeper, it's to get a world-class keeper, you're talking 70, 75 million these days. Depending if there was an article during the week where they were interested, they were saying in Jan Oblak at Atletico, and he will cost you 80 million if you want him. He's an absolute phenomenal goalkeeper. I did a stat comparison actually with him earlier on in the season, Oblak and Alisson and Ederson and all. And the only thing about Oblak is he doesn't play from the back, but it's more down to the style of the manager rather than the keeper himself. But he'd be huge money, absolutely huge money. For me, looking at the final in particular, I'm looking at Cavani, and as you said, Roy, he played very well, and I thought he showed great heart and spirit But he's not a 90-minute man maybe now. That was the first time I've ever seen him go to full duration. I don't know whether he does it a lot this year or whether he was always coming off the bench or always at least maybe after 60, 70 minutes coming out. So on that basis, I still haven't changed my mind from a few weeks ago. Harry Kane should be their absolute number one priority. If they have to spend all 150 million on him, go and get Harry Kane if you're Man United at the moment, because he is 25 goals guaranteed every season. He plays, I know he picks up the odd ankle knock and stuff, but I couldn't look away from him. Obviously, I think they need another centre-back. I don't think Lindelof is good enough. I don't think Bailly is good enough. But they'd be my two. If I was going for two, centre-forward, centre-back, and I think they can get by maybe. If Pogba stays, they could probably get by with the midfield they have. But yeah, you'd blow the whole thing, 150 million on Kane alone, if he will go there.
If that 150 million is spent, Dave, there's talk about Cristiano Ronaldo coming back, right? There's talk about a swap for Pogba plus money, obviously, because, you know, Ronaldo has dipped in, but not dipped in form. I think he finished off top goal scorer in Italy. He's still scoring goals. If he's in around that box, he can score goals. So instead of having one complete striker, do you have two halfies and you let them play every other week?
Cavani got out of that dynamic at PSG, and if he came in, he'd be probably, I'm back here again now, another superstar that I have to deal with, because he was the one that was really pissed off dealing with the Neymar and Mbappe show at PSG. Yeah.
So do you think that turned him off getting Kane even?
Everyone and the mother has to get Kane. I don't care. Cavani can rot on the bench. There's only two lads. I'm being honest. There's two players in the Premier League who score 20 goals a season plus consistently for the last 3 seasons. Liverpool have one, and whether he stays on, the other one's Kane. That's how rare they are. There's no one else in the Premier League. You have to get him. Now, after last night, unfortunately, I'd say your noisy neighbours next door are going to be looking at him seriously as well. So it's going to be a serious tug of war, providing he's going. But yeah, I'm exactly like Neil. That's how rare he is. If it costs the whole lot, get him, and then sell one or two, and then kind of do some real wheeler dealer business, make some of the money. For example, the likes of Bobby, you can get some top money for him, and then be a bit sensible if that's what you want to do. But yeah, if Kane is realistic and has a real want for United, everything else should go out the window for me. But if it's not, it's very much another striker to help support Cavani, because he's 34 going into 35. It's another hectic season next year with little or no breaks. Copa America starting as well. I presume he's still playing with Uruguay. Probably a week or two off straight into the season. You know, non-stop again, condensed, because obviously the World Cup is in Christmas. So it's a bloody tough slog. Can you rely on him purely for the full season? I wouldn't be sure. And centre half without a shadow of a doubt on top of that. And the fucking Sancho thing just won't seem to go away. So I don't know how much United really want him, but that won't go away. So watch that space about him. That's the one rumour that just keeps coming up and up and up. So maybe he could be the third man. You wouldn't know.
Yeah, I'd be with Nathan if he could get the lit in. That'd be unbelievable.
Although he won't take the vaccine, so keep him where he is.
It shows though. It shows that Maguire is actually a better player than everyone's been giving him credit for, because he made Lindelof look amazing, and the games that he hasn't been there, Lindelof looks exactly the player we thought he was beforehand. Very, very wishy-washy, and he lacked confidence without Maguire, it looked like there. So that would be an interesting one. Okay, we'll push on. Because Ireland aren't in the World Cup, we have to live off other people. So we're going to look at the England starting 11. Dave, I'll start with you again.
Oh, no.
Have a little think about it now as I'm talking to you. You've got your goalkeepers, your back four, your midfield, and your probably front three is what way he plays it. There's some people who are guaranteed. Obviously, Maguire could be out, it's very strongly strong case that he will be out. So, first of all, goalkeepers, Dave, who would you start in goal for England if you had to start them off?
Me, I'm the gaffer. I would go with Nick Pope over Pickford, and tell me who it is. He's dodgy in my head. Is it Henderson? Is it? Or is it somebody else?
There at the moment. Yeah.
I'd probably go Pope. I think he's the safe pair of hands out of the three of them. That's just me. I think he'll go with Pickford, to be honest. He'll stick with the all-reliable. I will give, sorry, Neil. Was I covering the mic there, was I? So yeah, I go with Pickford. Do I have to keep going now with the rest?
No,
yeah.
Neil, what do you reckon on the keeper? Because I'm not a Pickford fan.
No.
Yeah, I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not a massive fan on any of them. The only reason why I would lean a little bit towards Pickford, and I think Southgate will, is he has experience of a tournament. He had a real solid tournament the last time around, and I think he grew in stature over that tournament. Now, I don't think it's gone as well for him since then, but just purely because he's already bred to do it, it'd be no problem to him going into another tournament. So I'd probably stick with Pickford, but it's still incredible that England don't have an absolute stonewall world-class goalkeeper and have not in so much time. So flip of a coin with him and Nick Pope. I was the gaffer, I'd be like Dave, deciding between the two of them.
Yeah, there always seems to be that. They always seem to be just that level below top quality goalkeeper, don't they? Always a mistake likely, or not a presence. And I think that's where we're talking about with the likes of Henderson, Tom Heaton, Sam Johnson, the likes of them. They were always just below what was needed to be a top quality keeper. And I think Pickford is in there with them. Right full, Neil, and left full. These are real tough decisions now to make.
Well, I tell you now, Roy, I was like, when the whole Trent Alexander-Arnold thing came up over the right back position, I was thinking to myself, you dump Trippier, if you're playing three at the back with wing back, you're going for Reece James. And then if you're going for a standard four in the back, you probably stick with Kyle Walker. But to be honest with you, Reece James was absolutely fantastic in the final last night. He marked Sterling out of that game. And so much so where they were afraid even to switch Foden over onto the wing. He has pace, power. He's excellent going forward. He's an unbelievable engine. And he just sticks out to me as someone that's going to bounce on from this. He's a Champions League winner now. Could he be like that form player that grabs that position going into the summer? And you see this all the time. Play the guys that are in form. So Reece James, for me, is after making a late run for that right back position. He's not as error prone as Kyle Walker. Even though I actually thought Walker did, he showed a bit of bottle about him with some of his runs forward in the final. But he would be one for me. If you're playing a three at the back, Reece James would be my right-sided wing back. And maybe if you're playing a four, I'd probably stick with Walker in the four.
Yeah. Dave, do you reckon if Maguire's not there that they might go to the three at the back just to try and make it a little bit more secure? Because when you look at them, John Stones, fair enough, he's had a decent season this year. He's played fairly well. But again, with England, Maguire would have kind of controlled everything in the back line. Now you're looking at the likes of Cody and Stones. Does that fill you with confidence for them?
No, absolutely not. Far from it. Maguire definitely seems to be the glue. Because even Stones is okay, and he's a solid player, and obviously he's had a good season this year with City when he looked like he was going to be out in the wilderness. But it definitely is, as we now know, with your Maguire's and Van Dijk's missing, just how much a partnership works and how certain centre backs look a completely different animal besides somebody else. So I wouldn't trust Cody. I don't think he's as good. He's a nice lad, and everyone likes him. He's a nice pro, and he's a fun guy. But when there's problems at the when I mostly the Liverpool games I watched this year, I thought they carved them open quite easy, and I thought we got through the middle quite handy. And he had a lot to, and he caused the penalty, and he got annoyed, and he was tick, but he was ticking himself, but he was taking out other people, claiming dives, and he blatantly took, I can't remember who it was, down. I just don't think he has it to go up against the likes of your France's and Portugals and Italy's and Germany's in this tournament, to be honest. So Reece James have a back three with two fullbacks is a potential possibility because he's played a bit at centre half, but that's where they're lacking now. And Maguire's fitness is going to be vital for their long-term success in the tournament.
Dave, I'll stay with you. Chilwell or Shaw, fullback?
Yeah, Shaw's had a great season at United. As soon as Tellez came in, he's been transformed. I know that it wasn't just that now, to be honest, but a bit of competition for position, and he stepped up to the plate this year. Chilwell can grind on me a little bit. He's a bit of a modern footballer, unfortunately, a bit of a showboater, he was huffing and puffing a bit last night, chancing his arm, waiting for the contact and going down. I think Shaw will be a bit more honest in that sense, so that's why I'd probably go for him. But both of them are flying, both of them are in great form, and it's a great predicament to have for Southgate. But this is the problem, I think, which Southgate could have. I think I think he's going to struggle with the harmony of the squad, like before compared to before, because there's 2 or 3 players for a couple of positions. And let's face it, as much as say Ben Chilwell gets the nod, Luke Shaw's not going to sit there and go, yeah, that's no problem, boss. He'll be hacked off, and there's going to be 3 right backs going to be hacked off. Same in midfield. I think he's going to struggle with the harmony of this team, and it won't be as together as before because there's some serious competition, because there's a lot of people very similar to each other. So that's going to be very interesting. So if I would choose, I'd go with Shaw. I liked what he's done this year defensively.
Neil, I was looking at just got the squad up here, looking at their midfield. If you look at some of the papers, even in Sky, that they're talking about, this could be a great team. There always seems to be not a lot of balance in their great team. They're just throwing in the individual players, Jack Grealish and Foden and Jude Bellingham, and you're going, hold on a second. This is not how Southgate works. Southgate won't play that way. He won't play them all. So when you look at their midfield, you've got Bellingham, Henderson, Lingard, Mount, Phillips, Rice, and Ward-Prowse. I'm guessing it's going to be a 3 in the midfield. Who's going to fit in there?
So following on from the Harry Maguire scenario, right? Not only are you missing a guy that organises your back, you're missing a leader. And I think that's definitely one thing, even with Man United this year. They miss that leader, someone that's holding it all together and saying the right things on the pitch. So for me, it's in particular with Maguire out, you're going to have to now turn to someone else in the squad. And that for me would be Jordan Henderson, if you're taking a gamble that he's fit enough. So you've Declan Rice in there, who's the captain of West Ham.
He seems to be training there, isn't that right?
Yeah, he's back all right, and they reckon he's enough time to get himself up to match fitness. Now, England always have one of these guys that just isn't ready in time, you know what I mean? It could be Harry Maguire this time. But you need a leader in there. Now, if he was to go, obviously, I think it's going to be Declan Rice or Jordan Henderson. He had Calvin Phillips played in there a few times. He seemed to like that duo. But for a leader, someone that's going to lead on the field, if Henderson is fit, I would have a serious look at him in there first and foremost. Henderson not fit, you've got maybe, I think Declan Rice is a dead cert to start. You want to make room for Mason Mount. Obviously, in behind the striker, depending on what way you play. And then I think Jude Bellingham has got a lot of game time this year. He looks like a proper player, but I think it's probably come too soon for him maybe. I don't think he's kind of nailed down that spot. So I think, like you're saying, it's going to be a 3. But Southgate is going to have to get the balance of that right, because they are very attack-minded, wide left, wide right. So I think he's going to need 2 holders.
They have Foden in as a forward player, but could Foden fit in that midfield?
He could fit in maybe in the tip of a diamond if they were to play that way. But I have a feeling Southgate's going to go with 2 holders, 2 blockers.
Yeah.
Again, depending if he goes 3 at the back again. But and also again, this is all Harry Maguire weighed. If Harry Maguire is missing, maybe you want to give the back line that little bit more protection, Chelsea-esque, where you have a guy sitting in front there. So I think the likes of Henderson, Calvin Phillips, and then Declan Rice, I think will definitely be an anchor in that midfield, and that's probably the best place to start for them.
So who are you putting in the 3 then?
In the 3, I would have Mason Mount, I would have Declan Rice, and probably Henderson beside him.
Okay, so that's interesting. The forward line, Dave, Calvert-Lewin, Foden, Grealish, Greenwood, Kane, Rashford, Saka, Sancho, and Sterling, and Ali Watkins, because they haven't trimmed it down just yet. You can kind of have an idea who's going to not be there anyhow. So your front 3.
Yeah, I'd agree with Neil.
Foden's not in, and seemingly they're all ranting and raving about him. Could it be a case that Foden doesn't make it?
Yeah, like this is the predicament I kind of started with earlier on about trying to fit them all in, and I do agree with Neil. I think he will go with 2 holders in the midfield, so you only got, and more than likely Mount will be with whoever the 2 are. So you have to try and fit in Rashford, who he'd usually play, Sterling, who he'd usually play, and Kane, who he'd usually play. Let's face it, Kane's in if he's fit. So there's only 2 positions left, and you've Rashford, Sterling, Foden, Grealish, and Sancho are the 5 realistic that can play, because the others are on the periphery, but they've been in and out. So you have to fit 5 into 2. Sterling hasn't been playing all that much. I know he played in the Champions League final, so maybe take him out for a minute. Rashford plays a lot out on the left, and so he can just slot in and do comfortably his current position. Then you've got a toss-up between Grealish, Foden, and Sancho. But Grealish kind of plays out on the left as well. So, as I said, it's going to be very interesting how he handles this. Sancho's played a lot. I could be a bit bold. He's played with him a lot, and he's done quite well for England. So, say he went with two of his old guard, and even though they're not old, Rashford and Sancho, you've got Grealish and Foden out of the side. I don't think he'll start with Grealish purely because of he hasn't played all that much. So he might just slip it. So Foden might slip in ahead of Sancho. But I'm gonna stick to me guns and go with Rashford and Sancho on either side of Kane.
That'd be a big call. I think he's going to. I think if he goes for a back four, I think he'll play two sitting. I think if he goes for a back three, I just have a feeling that he's going to have one sitting there. Yeah. That's going to leave you with four at the back for any counter attacks. And I think he might play Foden and Mount just ahead of them. So that might be interesting. But it's going to be an interesting European Championships. Yeah.
You've also got Lingard, who's in flying form as well. Where do you try and fit him, or does he try and fit him in? Because he's never let him down in the previous World Cup.
Yeah, I just can't see Lingard getting in. Just can't see him. I think he's there. People get injured.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting tournament for Southgate, and this is where the manager's going to earn his crust, keeping them happy and keeping them kind of all on the one road. That's for sure. Okay,
we won't break down the European Championships because we have a show next week to do, and there's no other football on, so we need to use that.
There's something
next week. We'll go on to managers, Neil, because there's been a lot of in and outs with managers all over the place, and the most surprising one of all has been Pochettino back to Spurs. I mean, what's going on there? It sounds bizarre, and it will be bizarre if it happens.
Yeah, it's a crazy scenario when you're a manager. I mean, there's Tuchel last night saying he was on the pitch and Abramovich basically told him he was getting a 4-year contract, and it's his first conversation with him. Like, that's absolutely how is it his first? So look, it's a crazy. And let's be honest, Tuchel could be gone by next Christmas. A couple of bad results and he's hitting the road. Champions League medal in his back pocket. So I'm a bit surprised by that as well, the Pochettino scenario. Obviously, it didn't go down well that he didn't retain the title, which they retain every year. I don't know, maybe he doesn't endear into the fans or to the upstairs people. Who knows what's going on there? But what a massive step backwards if Pochettino was to go back to Spurs. I mean, they always used to say never go back. There's a reason they say never go back, but they also say never go back in a year. You've basically admitted you've tried something big. It wasn't for me. I wasn't big enough. I couldn't win anything, and I'd pack my bags.
Is it that, Neil, or is it the other way, where it's Daniel Levy's actually putting his hand up and going, well, I kind of made the balls of this here. We had a top-class manager. Things were starting to struggle a little bit. I should have stuck with him, and I made a big mistake.
Maybe. Look, I don't know what the financials break down like either. I mean, Levy only does things on the money side of things. I don't think he gets involved with the emotional side of it. But maybe after seeing Mourinho work for a year, I said people would have been clawing to get rid of Mourinho. If there was fans in the stadium, they would have been clawing to get rid of him as soon as they realised, listen, we bought into it, but we ain't going to go anywhere. Ain't going to win a league, for example, which they never were anyway. But maybe that's the part of the flip-flop. Now they realise they lost someone that played the right way, the Spurs way, good attractive football. Maybe it comes from the players, the guys that are in the dressing room saying, this guy was class. Look, a year ago, how we were playing. How, they overachieved, I think, in Pochettino, reaching the Champions League final. They were fairly consistent in Europe. So it's one of them, but I'd be very disappointed to see him go back there after a year.
Dave, I'm just going to say, you're probably going to say the same thing anyhow. Is it probably because Pochettino was there were good times there, and is this Levy's ploy to try and keep Kane at the club?
Yeah, bingo. That's exactly what I was going to say, because basically they seem to have had a very close relationship and very much almost a love for each other and a serious respect. And it could be that last ploy to try and grasp onto Harry Kane for a couple of more seasons. And I would not be surprised if that's where it's coming from. Because as soon as he talked about it, I was like, why would he want it? And then I was like, why would Levy want it? And then straight away I went, yeah, he's about to lose his best asset, and that's Harry Kane. And maybe that's where it's coming from.
Yeah. Dave, I'll stick with you. Allegri has gone back to Juve. Another one gone back to this club. Pirlo got the sack. In fairness, they struggled with Pirlo there, so he had his chance. He got them Champions League football, so at least that was there for them. It's really hard to understand this one as well, because if you're not happy with something from beforehand, if you're not happy with a manager winning leagues and then you sack him, what makes you think he's going to win the Champions League the second time around?
Yeah, well, they're not. It's as simple as that. They're struggling money-wise, and that's why the rumours of Ronaldo is going as well, because they can't afford to keep him going, because they can't really give him a good enough supporting cast, really, because they went all in with him. So, I don't know. Allegri's a nice steady ship. He's a nice, he keeps things nice and tidy. He's a solid record in Serie A, and I'd say that's all it really is. Bring in, if Ronaldo's going, I'd say that's where this could be coming from, as if to say, yeah, get the best of Italian football again, get kind of the right lads in and build up a nice, clever squad on free transfers like they've done on previous occasions, and bring in the kind of nuggets that are kind of aging a little bit, but not necessarily with the same pay bracket as Cristiano Ronaldo, providing he goes. But even his tweet during the week kind of makes it out that way. But as you said, they're not going to get much more from Juventus. You might get them back to the top of the pile in Serie A, but that's about the height of it, really. But you have a chance now. The fact that Kante's left Inter, after getting down to the top, and so he obviously has a job somewhere, and that's where we can speculate as well. So that's all it is. It's a domestic grab to get somebody like Allegri, because they're probably panicking that Inter are obviously on the look for a manager as well, because I don't think that's been done and dusted. Am I right in saying that?
I think I think Kante is gone. I think there is allegedly, this is what I've heard, is that there is a big problem with the money that's coming into the club. I think it's a Chinese-owned club, and I think there's been interference from the Chinese government about spending money within Italy. All that money spending it within Italy during this pandemic. Not let money leave the country. I think there's something along them lines, and they're really struggling. And I think now the club are trying to sort itself out. I don't think Kante was going to get the players that he wanted to get them, because the budget's going to be slashed. I think there's going to have to be players let go as well. Yeah. So I'm not so sure that you're going to see an Inter Milan the same as this year, so that's going to be a very interesting one. Neil, Eddie Howe for Celtic is done and dusted, gone. It only took 3 months for Celtic to mess this one up. It's unbelievable, because what's after happening, we believe, is that the backroom staff, one of the backroom staff wouldn't go to Celtic. He wasn't interested in going, so the whole thing collapsed. But it took 3 months for the club to make sure that that the whole backroom staff were gone. Why wasn't that done and dusted at the start? Surely they would have had a couple more months then to try and get a new manager in. It just seems very wishy-washy and Celtic-like.
Yeah, it's a shame as well, isn't it? Like Eddie Howe, you would imagine, would be absolutely tailor-made to go to Celtic and play now. The way he set them up, the way he plays football, he'd be, good, attractive football being played. He works with that kind of squad on a shoestring budget. He's done it at Bournemouth for years, although a couple of strange boys every now and then. Just lacks of professionalism, really, doesn't it? I mean, you identify a target, you go out, you try to make it happen. How it dragged on for 3 months, I've absolutely no idea. But it's very disappointing to end like that. No offense to Eddie Howe, but if he was thinking of going to Celtic, I don't know how he rates that as going up a level, down a level, because he's managing the Premier League. He's been out of game a while now. You think someone else would have had a look at him. But from destined to go there, everyone thinks it's going to happen, and then just to be, the rug get pulled from under them. Very disappointing. I'm sure Celtic fans would be a bit sick now knowing that they didn't get him.
Yeah. I think there's a Postacoglu, and I have no idea now if I'm saying that name right or not.
Close enough. I'm glad you said
it. I've seen a few interviews with him. He's a very cocky character. He believes in himself very, very strongly. Is he in China or Japan or something like that?
Yeah, so I just quickly, because I couldn't think of his name, so I just said Australian coach rumored for Celtic, and then it came up. So I'm one of the kind of supporters groups. So basically, a guy called Fergal Harkin is coming in the background, who was part of the City group, and he would have worked with him with Yokohama F Marinos. And there's rumours now that are Celtic going to slip into the City group, and maybe that's where this guy's coming in. I don't know, but look, I think it's a complete 180 on. You're looking at the likes of your Eddie Howe to kind of go, who? Now, I know, fair enough, we did this 20 odd years ago with a certain Arsene Wenger, but I'm not expecting the same success, that's for sure. But ex-Australian international manager as well. So yeah, that's the only way I'd be excited if it's part of a City group rumor, and then they can be in the system and maybe get a few City boys on loan. That's the only way I'd be excited about it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's something that need to sort out very quickly because they've got a big season ahead of them. Neil, Liverpool have a new defender. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, so anyone that's watched the German league this year has seen Kante play. He looks pretty decent. Now that said, there's been times where you've seen Liverpool and Leipzig and United, and then play Liverpool where they were maybe a little bit less endearing, the centre half partnership. But from the YouTube clips and the stuff, there was a load of kind of collages put together over the last few days on the forums that I've been on. And actually, this guy was kind of a centre half, but he aspired to be a striker, but found himself playing a centre half. So they were saying he's pretty good on the ball, kind of unflappable character on the ball, very good in possession, very, very, very quick. So he's, they're hoping obviously this guy is going to be Virgil van Dijk Mark II or a younger version of him. The 40 odd million, 35, 40 million sounds about right. You never know how that one's going to go. Let's be honest, there'll be a lot of scrutiny on him, but I think it's a sound piece of business because Liverpool need to, make sure they've that absolutely cemented for the new season, that they have new blood in there. Like, you're still unsure what way Virgil van Dijk is going to return from this injury. Can he play the amount of games he played previously? Will he need to be taken out of the lineup for a couple of weeks for rest and recovery? So they needed to plug that hole, and they've done it. So it looks like they're going to pass on Kabak, and they're going to bring in Kante instead. And he looks like he was rumoured over a year ago that they were looking at him. So it looks that they've pursued it, and now it's going to happen. So I think a sound piece of business, but yourself, come to the Premier League, that'll be the making or breaking of him. We'll see how he gets on. But a good positive start to the transfer window for Liverpool.
Well, isn't that it, Dave? Giving him the best chance is getting him in early.
Oh, absolutely. And Liverpool are fairly renowned the last few years, like before the season's even over, or literally the day after they lost to Real Madrid, it was announced Fabinho, and we were scratching our head a little bit going, was he the last of the carcass that remained of Monaco? And it turned out to be a great boy. But they're always a kind of a year ahead and know who they have and get their ducks in a row quite early. So it's a tough year for every club now. You've got the Euros coming up, so to get it in before that's done, because it's going to be an awful merry-go-round, because there'll probably be a bit of a lull for a few weeks when the championships are going ahead. So to get one in early, and as Neil said, because you just don't know what's going to come back of Van Dijk, and even the two lads, as good as they are, they don't seem to last a full season either, Gomez and Matip. So he'll be very much looked at as a potential number one in case the three struggle, or more importantly, the number one partner for Van Dijk, providing he comes back fit. But it'll be interesting, because I think Phillips has done enough to be in the roster, but they don't usually keep 5 centre halves, so maybe they might let one of them go. Matip's 32, 33 now, and he is a bit fragile. You never know. I don't think he's on a free or anything like that, but it'll be just interesting to see, because I think Reece Williams is certainly going on loan. So that'll be interesting to see. Has Phillips done enough to get into the roster, or are they going to keep 5 this year just in case it all goes Pete Tong again,
Nathan says, do we think Henrik Larsson could make his return as Celtic manager? Dave, I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, fans will love it, but it's one of them going, I don't know much of his record at the minute, so I can't really say whether he's a top coach or not. But you look at your Lampards and you look at your Ollie Solskjaers and stuff like that, they're not all as lucky as Steven Gerrard, and more often than not, they don't be as successful. He is against the grain. It's a tough slog to build your repertoire up as a manager. It doesn't happen overnight. Look at Ferguson, look how long it took him to get to a place like United, and even still at United, look how long it took him to get there. It doesn't, even Gerrard has had to take a couple of years at Rangers, and it's a bit of a demise of Celtic, not just a rise of Rangers, a bit of both. So yes, it will please them. Yes, it will keep them happy. But yourself, they can get pissed off very quick if it doesn't work out. Because if he hasn't got a war chest, and even still it won't be a big one, they'll fall out of love with him very quickly.
Yep. Okay. Neil, Manchester City, Aguero is gone. He's been phenomenal for the Premier League. He's been phenomenal for Manchester City. And to tell you the truth, he could very well be phenomenal for Barcelona. It looks like he's going there. 2 things I'm going to put here, 2 little points, Neil. Aguero going to Barcelona, how do you think he'll fare out there if he goes? More than likely will. And who do they replace him with? Because as we seen the other night, they're going to need a centre forward.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I think Dave let the cat out of the bag in that one earlier on, saying that the final appearance was so bad and they didn't have a focal point in attack that they're just going to have to splash out on a striker now. There's absolutely no doubt. I know Pep kind of reinvented the wheel and you're not playing with a number 9, etc. But he's done tremendously well to get the campaign that he has out of City without playing Aguero and without playing Jesus. He clearly doesn't trust Jesus to lead the line, or he would have been in this season. Aguero is just an absolute phenomenal talent for the Premier League. Like, he transformed that kind of status of a guy. He was like Harry Kane, like, year after year, just slamming into goals. So I think he'll do a job for Barcelona. They seem keen on him. Pep kind of let it loose in the interview that he thought he was going to make the deal happen. Who knows? It's kind of like the Luis Suarez to Atletico thing. He hits the ground running. Aguero will definitely bag you goals. You've seen it there in the last day of the Premier League season. He's still a phenomenal finisher. And Barcelona, let's be honest, in that league will create chances. So it could be a perfect mix there with Barcelona. Who they get to replace him? We just discussed it there, Harry Kane, surely, and more so City don't want United getting Harry Kane or anyone else in the Premier League getting Harry Kane. So they'll probably break the bank to bring him in. He would be phenomenal playing up front for Manchester City. Like, he could literally be 30 goals a season playing for Man City. There'll be just chances carved out from every minute playing for City. If they don't get Kane, you're obviously looking at Haaland, and that just depends whether or not Pep sees him as their focal point striker. He's still very young, massive price tag, but it just shows there's so little talent out there at the absolute top end of the scale, where the likes of Luis Suarez all of a sudden makes a name for himself again at, 34? There's not a lot of that talent out there, and City have to get hold of one of these guys. It'll be one of the two, I would say.
Okay. Dave, when you look at Mbappe, it just doesn't seem to be anyone talking about where he's going. It's very, very strange. I can't figure this one out. You look at Real Madrid, they've got Alaba in, so they've got a defender in, so they're starting to rebuild somewhat. But you would have thought there would have been some sort of smoke with Mbappe going anywhere, but there hasn't really been.
Yeah, because I think he's only the year left, so that's usually the under starters orders for everyone to jockey into position to start kind of wooing him, because Paris Saint-Germain have to get rid of him if he doesn't sign an extension. Like, you have to make money on this, because they spent a hell of a lot getting him in. So the rumor mill for him has gone exceptionally quiet compared to when the season was on. Is it a case of he is big bucks, he is going to be the 150 and up plus, so have clubs to shift money, because there's no two ways about it. Barcelona and Real Madrid will have to shift wages and have to shift players around in order to get him in. I don't think Bayern would afford him or would want to upset the apple cart of what they do. So more than likely it is the Premier League as in relation to affording him. So there was rumours that he likes Liverpool again, but I can't see Liverpool stumping up that money. United probably could, but whether he want to go there, so you'd kind of favour City, but there's no talk of it at all. If anything, it's a bit more leaning towards Kane. So it's very surprising.
Would he not suit a City team?
Of course, I think he would. I think he'd suit any team, to be honest. But it's just surprising that it hasn't kicked up a notch, considering he's a year left, and it doesn't look like he's signing a new contract with PSG anytime soon. So something has to happen. Either he has to sign that contract, or he's got to. Well, Paris will have to let him go, because they need to cash in on him. It's as simple as that. So yeah, very surprising. Unless it's an already done deal and it's just being kept quiet and they'll wait till after the Euros. You just don't know in this game. It's such a murky world now for the next 6 weeks to 2 months. And whatever rumor it is, it could be a fake rumor that we're all eating up, and then before you know, he's going the opposite direction 2 months later. Because they feed so many stories into the press now to get things going. So it's very surprising that it's so quiet. Very, very surprising.
That's what I'm saying. Not even a fake rumor.
Exactly.
Well, so it's just been a strange one on him. Everyone keeps looking at Haaland and Kane, and these are Mbappe for me is probably is the best talent out of them all. So anyhow, very interesting. We'll see what happens with that one. Neil, the team of the year. Did we go team of the year world football, or did we go team of the year in Premier League?
Premier League. I know more about that. You can throw in a couple if you think someone is better. But I mean, let's be honest. Most of the talent is in the Premier League these days. But Bayern would probably disagree with you a little bit there as well. So,
okay, go Premier League. So we won't want to put you under too much stress now. Go ahead, talk to your team of the year and why they'd be in there.
Goalkeeper, I'm actually going to go and I would have gone Alisson last year, but he's had a kind of a strangely rough season this year. But I'll go Ederson off City. I don't know how many times he's done this ball over the top for the striker running in. It's an unbelievable piece of skill. He's like he's firing it out of a cannon at times. But he's really, really solid. He's brilliant with the ball at his feet. He allows City to play the way City want to play in the back line. So Ederson gets the goalie. Other Premier League, maybe Martinez from Villa this year did a very good season.
Yeah,
he's been very consistent. Do you want more?
No, well, going to Dave.
Yeah,
we'll let Dave see if he agrees or disagrees with everything you say. So, Dave.
I'd agree with him, and I just stick my neck out a little bit and say I'd pick Ederson for Brazil as well over Alisson. I think he has a bit more in the goalkeeping sense than our fella. I think, I'll be honest, I've said it a few times. I've even said it in Stu. Alisson's a bit of a flapper in my opinion. I don't think he's the greatest shot stopper around. He's a great sweeper and the whole lot, but I think real technical ability as a goalkeeper, I think he lacks it a little bit. I'll be brutally honest, and it's an unpopular opinion, but it's just what I see. I think he concedes a lot of goals from parrying shots back into danger instead of getting rid of them, and he doesn't like crosses apart from down the other end. But I would go with Anderson every time, and I'd agree with John Martinez, and I'd just give a little honourable mention to Schmeichel, just because all around consistency for the last few years, Schmeichel's been a top keeper. So I'd go with Ederson.
Neil Rifle.
Oh. If I'm a defensive rifle, I don't know what it is. I don't want to say I've my Liverpool hat on here, but it's probably not been his best season. I still think Trent has more ability than anybody else I've ever seen.
No, we're not talking about ability now. We're talking about who fits in.
His assist go right. You know what? We're going
this season.
Yeah. If we're going all out attack, I'm going from, but I'd be slated for it. So I have to say, play it safe, and I'll stick with. Do you know? Actually, I won't. I was going to say stick with Kyle Walker, but I'm going to actually go new this year and go Reece James, because I just think he's been brilliant the last few weeks. Young and upcoming, and I'll throw him in there.
Yeah, I'd agree. I can't believe he even mentioned Trent. He's had a disastrous season. He's only played well in the last month or two. He's had a disaster of a season. God forgive me. Okay, Dave, do you agree? What do you think there on that one?
Left back anyway, I would go with...
Jumped away from it.
No, I'd go... Yeah, it'd be a tough battle between Reece James and Kyle Walker. Give a little nod to Reece James, up and coming, more so than the old guard. Kyle Walker, we've seen it every year. Don't get me wrong, that might be a bit harsh, but he does it year in, year out. He's a very consistent right back. So for the season he's had, and obviously what happened last night, and it's still fresh in the brain, I'll give it to James.
Right, I'll give you the left full show first, Dave. All right, give Neil a bit of a break there. He's very under pressure tonight. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Shaw. I think he's been very impressive this year. I think he's done well defensively. I thought he put the likes of Salah in his pocket in the couple of games that they played, and a defensive aspect. I just give him a nod over Chilwell. I'm trying to think who. Oh no, Jesus! I was trying to think of the other clubs, and straight away I thought City and Zinchenko. No, he's bottom of the table. So yeah, I over anyone else that's up thereabouts, and even down below, I'd keep it simple, and I'd give it to Shaw.
Okay, Neil, Leicester City have a couple of decent full-backs.
He's Justin,
yeah. It's is it just because there's? I suppose, do we get caught up sometimes in what we hear on the television, and then it's thrown out in the papers, and we get caught up in the whole thing. Sometimes we don't analyse it and give them, they might very well be just on par with the likes of Shaw's improvement. I agree with Dave, has been huge defensively. I still have a little doubt about Shaw, but that's because, you have one season. If he does it again next season, I'd be happy enough with him. Okay, go centre backs.
So Diaz, I think, is a dead cert. I think he's had a very, very good season. I don't think I'd put John Stones in beside him purely because, much like when Harry Maguire was missing and you seen how bad Lindelof was, I have a feeling if maybe Stones wasn't playing with Diaz, maybe he'd be showing up a little bit more.
Has to be Nat Phillips.
It'd be Nat Phillips. Do you know what? He'll get my honourable mention, right? He gets the honourable mention. But look,
Trier.
You got a best trier, and actually even his interviews are so humble as well. He's brilliant in the interview. He's real kind of honestly, well, we're here to win type of thing. But anyway, Diaz goes in, and then you've maybe, I think Maguire's had a solid season this year, and obviously his stock has risen since he got injured, which happens every now and then. But two of them together, Diaz would cover for Maguire's lack of pace. So as a partnership, I think they'd be quite good together.
Yeah, I think so. I have to say, I thought Maguire has been really, really good this year. It just shows he's so comfortable on the ball. I very rarely see him lose the ball. He always seems to be in the right place. There's not too many times that he's been caught for pace. That is his weakness, though. His pace is his weakness. So if people can exploit that, that is there. But I thought he dealt well with not getting exploited as much as he could have this year. I thought he did very well. And again, it just shows he obviously keeps everything together in the back line, and that's invaluable sometimes for a team.
Yep.
Dave, anyone else in for a shout there?
Yeah, just the last few weeks, for whatever reason, I've noticed it. But I like the partnership. It's more a partnership. But Tarkowski and me were quite solid for the last few weeks for Burnley, and have always done a job. I've really been impressed with Fofana coming in this year. Another gem that Leicester have uncovered. Now, a lot of that obviously has to be a bit of credit to Evans as well, like the old stalwart beside him. But he could be kind of like the up and coming star that a few of the top clubs could end up trying to snap up. But then again, we could debate whether Leicester are now as well. So, but yeah, I'd still go with the two lads. We're all fairly much in agreement here at the minute. We need to find another position. Start a war.
Neil, midfield. We'll talk. I don't know what way we play our midfield here, but it's normally three in midfield, so we'll just slot three players in and three up front. Give me your three players in midfield.
I'd put in three Kantes.
If you could. Yeah, I think we all would.
Kante. So Kante goes in 100%. And my other one who I would say I would absolutely insist on being in the midfield is Mason Mount this year. He's been absolutely class. Lampard's kind of darling. He brought him up in with him. Little bit of a blip when Tuchel came in, kind of saying, well, I'll check this guy out. But my God, Tuchel has embraced him and got a really, really good performances out of him as well. I think he's been consistent. He'll score goals. He's a super striker of the ball. His work rate is absolutely fantastic, which it needs to be for the middle. So yeah, I'd go with him. And then, you know what? A lot of people say De Bruyne. I don't know how good De Bruyne was when I look at him over the full season. He has some moments where he's unplayable, but maybe even like the final last night, some games get away from him a little bit, I think, as well. Or maybe, look, that's because he's a marked man these days. Yeah. If you're maybe another Holden, maybe Declan Rice could be in there, had a very good season for West Ham. But definitely Mount and Kante would be the first two anyway.
Yeah. Anyone from Leeds, Dave, do you think could make it into that midfield?
I would certainly give Calvin Phillips.
Fairly well, hasn't he?
Yeah, Calvin Phillips, I'd give him an honourable mention without doubt. Stuart Dallas is a cult hero. They love him for whatever. He's been doing a great job. I think Ilkay Gundogan has stepped up to the mark on the attacking side of things this year. And then we've got a certain Portuguese midfielder in Man United that you can't not mention either, to be honest. Because he is midfield. So yeah, that's a tough treat to try and fit in. Kante's in for me without a shadow of a doubt, and I think you two would probably agree on that. Would you agree on Mount as well, Roy?
100% with Mount. 100%.
So then we've got one.
So no Fernandes, and you're going for
Fernandes in. Fernandes scores goals. He creates things. He's got a good attitude. People say he doesn't turn up for every game. I will say to you, how many players do turn up for every game, and other teams have plans against certain players. It's going to happen. If you're scoring in the high teens as a midfielder or in near your 20s, you're doing something right. I couldn't see Fernandes not being in the team, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
He doesn't get in when Mount is there. When Mount is there, only one of them can play. It's Mount or Fernandes.
It's not. It's Kante. Who else would you need sitting in front of the back door?
Yeah.
So we've got two sitting in front. So we've got Mount and Fernandes. Okay, Neil, we'll go with you again. So we've got two wingers, left and right. Who do we put in?
Are we doing 3 up front?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So Mo Salah starts for me. Absolutely starts for me. I just think even in an awful season by Liverpool, expectation, I want to say by standards, but their expectation. And I think he really, really just kept them ticking over. Like, where would you be without, what was it, 22 or 23 goals, whatever it was? Where would you be without them goals? And when I compare him maybe to the likes of, like your Rashford, your Fodens and stuff like that, it's the amount of goals that Salah gets you. And that's why he's going in there for me. Harry Kane, I think, is the ultimate choice as a number 9. Left side, I might throw. Oh, sorry, Jack Grealish.
Jack Grealish on the left.
Yes, 100%. That Jack Grealish, just the conversation earlier on about England, if Jack Grealish didn't get injured, I would have him in ahead of Foden and I'd have him in ahead of Rashford on the left.
Okay. What about, you don't think Foden's good enough to get into the team?
No.
On the performances this year, even though Jack Grealish was out injured for a good chunk at the second.
Yeah, it's again, look, it's the injury kills him, but if I'm picking now, up to the point he got injured, I thought Grealish was absolutely fantastic, even for England and for his club. The injury just kills him a little bit, so it's hard. It's a toss-up between the two, but if fully fit and flying Jack Grealish pre-injury or Foden, as good as Foden's been this year, I'd be putting Grealish in ahead of him.
Okay. Dave, do you agree?
Yeah, my instinct was Salah, Kane, Grealish, and then I was kind of like, but Foden, and if I just look at the injury, would that be what sways it? The fact that he finished out the season, like it's one of them that I might swing more towards Foden, but at the same time, would I be doing Grealish a disservice because he was outstanding? But then again, credit to Foden, he's 21. It's his first proper starting season, and he's been tremendous. So that's the one where I'm kind of like Grealish / Foden, and I'm still unsure, but I would go with the other two. That's right. I'd let you decide them once.
Okay.
Providing you want Salah and Kane.
Huh?
Providing you want Salah and Kane.
Well, Salah's in. Salah scores goals, you're in. Kane scores goals, you're in. I think it's a real toss-up between Grealish and Foden.
They're a bit similar as well. Like, they're very exciting players.
I like Grealish. I don't know if he's as good as Foden, to tell you the truth. I think Foden's a better player. I think he can create more, he can score more, and I think he can play in more positions. So if I was to have the choice of the two, I'd have Foden. But the two of you have gone for Grealish, so that's our team then. So we've gone for in goal. Who have we gone for? Ederson.
Yeah.
James, Shaw, Maguire, Diaz, Kante, Mount, Fernandes. Left is Grealish, right is Salah, and Harry Kane up front. Not a bad squad. I think we might finish that off here today with that. Okay, lads, thanks very much. We'll be back again next week with a European Championship special. And of course, all your rumours. The rumour mill is going to go wild because the papers will have absolutely nothing else to be talking about. But there's definitely going to be some transfers going on. And wait till the Euros are over. Well, you see, one El Hadj Diouf is in there somewhere and he's going to be bought up and snapped up like a shot. Okay, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to have a look out for us on social media. And we'll talk to you next week. This is the best part. Freeze.